Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming, and I would like to say thank you, Steve, and the team at Creative Mornings for having me here and hosting you guys. Hope you guys were staying warm outside. It's a little snowy. It's only September, but we'll deal with it kind of thing. So as a show of hands, how many people have seen the movie prior to Creative Mornings email sent out? Anyone seen it in the film festival yet? Perfect. And since Creative Mornings has helped us share the link online, how many of you have seen that? Oh, decent amount. How many of you have not seen it yet? Okay. So, major spoiler alerts. I chatted with Steve a lot about how we're going to present the information and what I'm going to share, and I really wanted to be open and honest with you guys to understand our creative process. As Steve mentioned, the theme this month for Creative Mornings is chaos. And chaos comes to us in a lot of forms, positive and negative. And a lot of times we associate chaos with negative thoughts and fears, but a lot of times it can be very beautiful as well. And what I'm going to show you today is the events that came through with us filming the documentary Made in Vietnam, which is about me searching for my biological father. And you'll see the theme chaos and how it drove a lot of our film. So, as I mentioned, the topic is called A Beautiful Chaos. So, disclaimer, I am not a scientist that studies chaos. This is purely about my own experiences and observations throughout the film and its process. So I'm going to do a little experiment here. For the next 60 seconds, I want you guys to close your eyes. You can do that now. And you're going to hear some music in the background, and I want you to embrace this music. And I want you to think of someone that you're very fond of, or that you very much love. And I want you to think of memories with that person. It could be a spouse, a child, sibling, or a best friend. Think about the great times you guys had together. And think about why they make you so happy. Think about the hard times you guys had together. And think about the great times. You guys can open your eyes. And as the experiment goes along, I want you to hold on to that thought throughout the presentation. Hopefully I get the mic right here. So, what is the definition of chaos? In simple forms, it's complete disorder and confusion. We associate chaos with pain, with fear, and a lot of negativity. On a side note, this is me when I was 3 years old. We were in Hong Kong. I was a refugee, and my mom and I escaped. Well, technically, I didn't do it. She did it all for me. And we're in this refugee camp. I know the stories we hear about refugees these days is probably much more worse than I went through. As you can see, I'm happy as a little button. And it's my 3rd birthday at the refugee camp in Hong Kong. I actually remember this memory. This is one of my earliest memories, and I obviously have photos to prove my memory. And I remember everyone telling me, blow out the candle or something like that. And you can slowly see me spitting saliva onto my cake, because I don't know how to blow anything. And of course, afterwards, I realized I did something bad. I didn't know how to blow out a candle, so my world was in chaos at the moment. And it must have been traumatizing, because I remember this moment. And they always say the first 5 years of a child's life will be, everything they've experienced will be determined for the rest of their lives. And so to this day, I still can't whistle. But the other flip side of chaos is that it's organic, and it's very beautiful, and it's free. We humans, our brain is programmed to cause more order to the chaos around us. A lot of times, we can't control all that. Oh, there's a little design flaw there. So I've been a designer for 18 years. I started out working at Critical Mass. I've attended ACAD and various other agencies. I've done the client side, and as Steve mentioned, I started my own business called Double Whammy Studios, which we focus on storytelling through video and film mediums. I got into film in the last 7 years. That was purely by accident. I remember watching a movie called Sunshine. It's a sci-fi film. And what really resonated with me was how I felt after the movie. How many times have you watched the movie and it made you cry? You have to think of yourself, why am I so emotionally attached to something that has nothing to do with me on screen? But it's a way of storytelling where we're able to resonate and connect with our audience. And there's many ways to obviously connect, and not all the times will you make that connection. From the experience of the films, I did act in 2 feature films and did 2 reality TV shows, one of them being Wipeout. If you ever want to see me in a tight yellow spandex outfit, you can search for episode 7, Wipeout Canada. But the point of me doing the acting and being on TV wasn't to become this Hollywood actor. It was actually my process of getting in there and understanding the directing world and how to tell stories. I am a very hands-on kind of person. You can't just give me a textbook and I'll ace the test the next day. I get to experience it myself. And about 5 years ago, I did my first short film called I Love You, Isabel. And it got onto NSI Online Canada. And that short film was kind of based, it was a narrative, but it was kind of based on my childhood experiences through domestic violence. And then eventually, I told people how I wanted to go search for my father back in Vietnam. And with all my connections in the film industry, they're like, T, you should probably document them. Like, yeah, maybe I should document that. And it became this bigger idea than I thought I was going to do. And of course, we formulated a team and everything and tried to get that underway. The title came to me in all unexpected places. I was putting on my Converse shoes. And in the Converse shoes, it actually said, made in Vietnam. I was like, I didn't know we made shoes in Vietnam. They usually see made in China. And so that really resonated with me because every time people ask me, where are you from? Like, well, I'm from Vietnam. But half of my stories, I never knew who my father was. Growing up, my mom never explained anything. All I knew is that we escaped Vietnam. By the way, if you guys ever want to watch a really good documentary on the Vietnam War, the Ken Burns documentary, insane. It was on Netflix, and I just recently watched the last couple of months. I remember hearing about it over the years, and I'm thinking, I know everything about the Vietnam War. No, you don't. Ken Burns did such a great job of making the film, and I remember someone told me a good documentary should tell both sides of the story. And at the end of the Ken Burns documentary, I actually felt for the North Vietnamese. I actually understood what they went through, and I actually felt sympathy for them. What you see here in the photo is a time lapse that we did in Vietnam. I'm in the middle, Dan is on my left, and Caleb is on my right. And you can see the chaos of scooters running around us. So where did this idea came from? One of my best friends, Dan, who's in the film, I remember we were out clubbing one night, and we're in the lineup, and at this point, it was probably in 2008. And he was telling me how he's going back to Vietnam to visit his grandpa. I told him, I've never been back to Vietnam since I've escaped. No reason, I never caught the travel bug yet. And I told him how I want to possibly look for my dad. And he gave me this one idea that not even my own mother ever gave me. And he's like, well, T, did you know that a lot of people actually go back to Vietnam to search for family? I mean, everyone had to escape Vietnam. And so you lose family through that process. And he's like, one of the most common ways people search for family is they put an ad in the newspaper. I was like, I can slap $100 on that. And worst case scenario, I don't find anything. It's a nice little vacation. So that idea was where it all came from. But ideas are nothing if you don't execute. This is so true in the creative world and pretty much anything else. You always have this, I have this great idea, or even sometimes my girlfriend tell me, babe, what do we do this, what do we do? I'm like, babe, focus. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Pros and cons, that kind of stuff. So, but it's so true though. And with our time in our lives, we can only do so much. So if you have a good idea, make sure you execute it and think of a plan. So the next step of the film is, how do we get money? So I was fortunate to have been curated and selected on this platform called Invest YYC. It's pretty much like Kickstarter, but locally for Calgary. And that's where everything really got the ball rolling. I was able to get funding to help pay for the team's flights and everything. So getting a team together is always a challenge as well. We had very little budget. So how do you get people on board with the idea? They have to believe in your dream. And luckily, one of the people on my team happened to be Black as well. So this is the actual team here. David was our photographer as well as our second cameraman. Caleb was on the right. Then we have Dan and Lai, me in the middle. Charlie was an old friend of mine who lived in Vietnam at the time. Yvonne was my other good friend. So the six of us on the left were all my good friends. Aaron was a DP here in Calgary that I was fortunate to work on a few films, and so I developed a good relationship with him. And when I told him about the idea, he was like, where do we go? So getting the idea and having them believe in your dream really helps. So for those who haven't seen this film, major spoiler alert. So if you need to go la 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 like that throughout the whole time, I am totally fine with it. Otherwise, I will proceed. So this photo is taken at nighttime. I believe is around day 7, and Vietnam has over Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh as they call it today, has a population of over 7.2 million people. And the lead that we had was really an address of a family friend. That was our starting point. And of course, you can only imagine the chaos that could have went through it because we had no plan. There was no, well, here's your 5-step process of making a documentary and finding a father. We had none of that. So we just figured, you know what, let's start with this and see where it goes. We knew the film could be a complete flop, but that didn't stop us from at least giving it a try. Those sidebar notes, whatever, observation-wise, a lot of times I'm driving in the city, and I can be a little bit racist to my own people, and there's a really bad driver on the road, and I'm always like telling, babe, I bet you it's an Asian driver. And lo and behold, it's an Asian driver, and you always think, why are they such bad drivers? But when I went to Vietnam, and this can speak to a lot of places in Asia, such as China and everything, where it's highly dense, there is no rules on the road. I'm not even kidding you. They will go on the sidewalk, they will go. Crossing the streets in Vietnam was super scary. So if you guys ever have a chance to go to Vietnam, I highly recommend. But crossing the street, they swarm around you like bees. And what you do is you have to walk slowly and just stare at them. I'm not even kidding you. That's how much chaos is on the roads. But it works. And funny it may be, statistically, per capita, there's actually less accidents as compared to North Americans. And so it's kind of funny to think, well, we have all these wonderful rules. Are they wonderful? But yet we have accidents here and there. So it's interesting how that chaos kind of works. Another thing about chaos I've learned is sometimes when you try to structure things, it doesn't work. So the first part of our journey, we were waiting on a lot of information after we found our first contact. And so most of the time, we're actually just waiting around for the first week or so. So we decided to stage a few shots, get permits at a few places in Vietnam. This building here is called the Reunification Building, which is pretty much essentially the White House from South Vietnam at the time. This is also the place, as they call it, the Fall of Saigon. This is where the last stand of the Americans were at when the North took over. And if you watch Ken Burns, it was pretty intense stuff. So we decided to film at some landmarks, and of course we had to get permits. And during that time, we kind of had to set up a few questions so that the camera guys can kind of film us, and then I throw back information with my team. But it wasn't good. The footage was meh. It wasn't that great. I didn't feel it was authentic. So I actually didn't end up using any of this footage that was very structured in the documentary. But what we did use was a guerrilla tactics. So pretty much the thing was, if they ask, you're just a tourist, we don't know you. So each member of the team was tasked with, you're walking around with a film crew with cameras and mics and everything, and we knew the officials there would be very suspicious of what we're up to. So our guerrilla tactic was, if you get stopped, everyone just walks their own way. Whoever they stop is the one that deals with it. And you just be like, me no speak Vietnamese. And I also handed them $20 that if worst case scenario, you just pay them off. Because funny as it is, they just want a little bit of money. So we had money on hand, but fortunately we didn't get stopped or anything like that. So the waiting game. As we got a lot of information, we had to be extremely patient. We actually only planned to film for 2 weeks. So I only had my film crew for 2 weeks. And the film ended up being extended after that. I don't know where this poppy is coming from. got extended after that. So a lot of my friends on camera actually had to start stepping up their game to film for us. So a lot of times we hit these dead ends, and it was very daunting. It was very stressful. A lot of times we were there. I had to take afternoon naps around 2 o'clock every day, and I couldn't understand why. And it's just so much brain power that you have to go into it. And you think how the brain works, every time you're making major decisions, you're actually using up energy. And if you're not eating properly and sleeping properly, the energy really drains on you. So when you're at a day at work and you're stressed, if you ever come home and you're tired, that's probably why. So this is where I told you the major spoiler alerts. So at this point, I want you to rethink about what we did in the beginning when you guys had your eyes closed. About the person that you thought of, that you really cared for or are fond of or love, whether they're still here or not. And during this part of the film, I believe this is about day 7, so this is about 14 minutes of the film, where we get a phone call from our first contact, who's supposed to try and set up more information with people that may know where any of our relatives are, as we're trying to chase down where the whereabouts of my father. And I will play this scene here. The scene is about 4 minutes long. So as you're watching this, I want you to think of that person that you care for and love.
Talk this. I don't even know.
Phải không? Sao không biết? Ok, come on. Có gì con gọi ông ngày mai không? Để con hỏi cho ông gọi được nhé. Được không? Ok. Dạ, come on. Ok, bye. I'm sorry, man. Your dad's dead. He died in 98. Is that what you said? Yeah. He said his ashes are in a temple in Ho Chi Minh. Maybe the ashes for the... Yeah. I just told you. They found out that your dad passed when? He passed in 1998. November, December 1998. And his ashes are in a temple here in Saigon.
You're thinking, holy shit, where's the tissue paper? So, That was a huge shocker in the film. At the moment, I was so out of words. We went to the rooftop that night, we got the Hennessy, and we just were trying to reflect, like, what do we do now kind of thing. So you can imagine, after years of planning, that all came down when you get this news. But yet, I had this love for someone I never met. So at this point, we learned you can't control everything. We had an expectation to go out and find someone, and you realize they passed away many, many years ago. But our next call to action, our original contact, Uncle Sang, we call him Uncle because even though we're not related, in Asian culture, it's very polite to call him Uncle or Auntie. He told us, you got to find the temple and find the urn. And so that was like our next, okay, let's refocus. We can still make something out of this and track down the urn. But that wasn't an easy task as well. This had an unexpected experience. During our downtime of like reassessing, okay, what's our next steps kind of thing, Tina, the lady on the right, who's the hotel owner at Thi Vo Hotel, was wonderful to let us stay there, and she heard about our unfortunate findings, and she wanted to take us on a journey where it's completely not part of the film, and this is actually unseen footage that we were planning to put as an extra feature. So Tran Van Key, the old man in the middle, cute as a button, he's like a national treasure. He plays very traditional Vietnamese style music with certain instruments. And during this experience, another aha moment happened for me that is actually very tied towards storytelling. And I'll play that here.
Bao giờ nên vợ
When we can become husband and wife. Như chim về tổ. Happy as a bird, which can find a nest. As the dragon who can fight the clouds.
So that was a wonderful experience. And what I found from that was, I actually was tearing up when he finished singing. And he was so sharp. He was like 84 years old, and his English was perfect, and he's traveled the world. But how he was explaining to us one of the musics that he was selecting, that he made. And it was resonating with him of the story of his music. And my Vietnamese is very bad, by the way. But luckily, he was speaking English. And at the end of it, just meeting this guy and just hearing his music for the first time, I was actually not bawling my eyes out, but like, you know, a few drops coming out and stuff. And it reminded me about storytelling, how you have to connect with the audience in some way, some form. And of course, one of the ways of doing that is just being authentic. Another side note of thing is we had a major crash, literally. We went up north to Kappa. This was after the film crew's gone. Caleb had to take over the cameras, and we were just taking a little bit of downtime to kind of reassess our next steps to going to my birth city of Da Nang. On our way off of Kappa, it was a little moist that morning, and me and Dan were doubling on the bike, on the scooter, and we had a spill. And I took most of the hit for that one. So on the right side, you see my leg. I was literally bleeding from my left of my body. Luckily, we were fine, and our spirits were still up. So we started traveling to Da Nang. Da Nang is my birth city. It's in the middle of Vietnam. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. So you ever go to Vietnam and you hit Ho Chi Minh, which is very New York-like, very fast-paced, Da Nang is very relaxed and chill. Interesting thing about Da Nang is their airport code was DAD. That gave me goosebumps when I got it from the airport lady. I was like, oh my God, what does this mean? So I thought that was interesting how it's, you know, spelled out dad. When we got to Da Nang, we had a new contact. Her name is Ba Hiang. Ba means grandma. She's not, again, blood, but she was a family friend. You see her to my right. She was my first experience of anything close to grandma, and she was, I just adored her, and me and her got along really well. She treated me like a grandson, And she was a family friend from Uncle Sang, who knew my parents at the time. So they too also knew that my dad passed away a long time ago, but they have no idea where his urn is as well. But when I got there, they treated us really well, and they were willing to help as much as they could. So we were sharing them photos, and from that transpired an old photo that was part of my dad's group back in the day. My dad was part of this martial arts thing called Vo Vietnam. At the time, my dad's mandate, he was the master of the group, to spread Vo Vietnam across the world internationally. And the cool thing was one of the studios hit Calgary, so I was able to attend it for a few years ago. Because Ba Hieng's son recognized one of the men in the photos, he's like, this guy just lives down the street. And so they called him up. They actually had a gathering that night, so I got to meet up with my dad's group from back in the day. As you see here, the photo on the left, in sequential order, they were all there that night at this gathering. The gathering, what they were doing was to see which of their students would advance in a new belt. And so we decided to take a picture in the exact same order, and I stood in place of where my dad was. This photo was probably taken in 76. With vision and determination, you get positive results. That can happen. So one thing led to another. Ba Hieng's son, Uncle Cat, his name's Cat, had a contact of a family friend of ours in a small city from where my mom was born. So we drove up there, which was an hour's drive. And from there, we found my mom's side of the family. My first time ever meeting blood. And it was overwhelming for me because, one, I can't speak the Vietnamese. So luckily, my friends Lai and Dan were there to help translate. And as they were just like, they were in tears as well because they've only remembered me as a baby. And they even called me by my Vietnamese nickname, which is Gobi, which direct translation means little penis. But it's actually really cute in the Vietnamese sense. So I was known as Little Penis. And so they're calling me Gobi, and that really connected me right away because only my mom ever called me by that nickname. And so that right away connected me. I felt very at home with them. Obviously, their blood and everything. And so my mom's sister-in-law was telling me how 4 years ago to that day, a strange man came to that town, and they're asking, have they seen me? Like, no, we've never seen Thi since he was a baby. And the strange man had a scooter mask on, which looks like a SARS mask. And he's like, if Thi ever comes around, tell him to go to this address. So then my whole family said, where's that card? Where's the address? So they searched for it. They found the address, and it led us to another location in Hue. Hue was another hour's away drive. So then Uncle Cat was like, do you want to go to Hue? I'm like, let's go. So we drove on the whim up to Hue. We finally found the address where it led us to this temple. Small little temple, and it had like an old house next to it. And outside emerges some old man. And this old man happened to be my dad's side, great uncle kind of thing. And so they were all gathering. So now I'm meeting my dad's side of the family. And so they're all gathering. They're trying to understand, how did this happen? How did I get here and everything? And Ba Hieng was telling me, well, Thi found me, and then from here we led to this thing. One thing led to another. And then they're saying, oh, I forgot the snippet to kind of add for you. So because we couldn't find my dad, and we're trying to find his urn in the temple, our biggest step was to try to find my dad's younger brother, Uncle Trung. So as we're here, the family members tell me Uncle Trung's wife and daughter are here. And so it's Vietnamese New Year's, and I actually calculated that on purpose to go during Vietnamese New Year's. And unlike New Year's here, where we celebrate, party, and get wasted, Vietnamese and Chinese New Year's, they celebrate family. It's all about family. And actually, there's a documentary out there called, I don't remember the name, but it's the world's largest migration of human population from China. And they all emigrate back home during Chinese New Year. So Uncle Trung's wife and daughter showed up, which is her here and my first cousin. And you can see my cousin's in tears because she's about 10 years older than me, and she remembers me when I was a baby. And she can't believe that I actually popped up. And they were even saying how they were just talking about me days prior to this, and wondering how I'd been. They thought I either was too poor or that I died, is why I never visited them. But really growing up, my mom just never told me any information, so I had no idea about this kind of stuff. So she was very happy to see me, and I guess obviously she has lots of fond memories of my father, so that's why she got all emotional, which was very apparent with this experience. So we found my mom's sister. So on the screen on the left here is my first aunt and my first cousins. And on the right-hand side, near the end of the film, I find my cousins from my dad's side. So I went from only knowing my mom as in terms of blood family to finding over 45 people on my family tree. I think Ancestry should sponsor me or something. Ancestry.com. But I always tag them on Instagram, they never respond back. So the film took us about 30 days to film. This was approximately 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years actually to this date. But it took me 4 years to edit. Of course, a lot of creatives may know I was trying to be a perfectionist. I was like, it's not ready yet. And then I realized, you know what? I have to get this film done. Otherwise, an idea is nothing if you don't finish it, kind of thing. We ended up tripling our post-production budget. But one of the big taglines that I learned over the years that really helped me focus was, done is better than perfect, which is so true. If you can't get it done and share it with the world, what good is it? Whether it's a business idea or an art, painting, anything. So I knew that I had to let that go, try and perfect it, and just finish it the best I could to tell the story the way I wanted to. The film got into the Calgary Film Festival last year, as well as the Toronto Real Asian Film Festival. We just recently got announced that we got into the Chicago Film Festival, which we'll be attending end of this October. So this will be our first US premiere. We just won our first award at it's called the Hollywood International Independent Awards in LA. And so we're being invited to come down to accept the awards in March. And also a couple weeks ago, we had chats with a distribution company in the UK. So a lot in the works, but overall the film was a good success, and we had 3 sold-out shows at the Calgary Film Festival and everything. So one of the things that I also, during this journey, that I really took in and resonated when I was in Vancouver one time partying, of course. While I was at the bar, there was this big sign that said, it is good to have an end to journey toward, but it is the journey and end that matters. This is by Ernest Hemingway. And that really resonated with me, because in the film, we had an end goal, but it was everything that happened in between that really made us grow. And to end off, my own thing is, I always like to say that, don't be scared to take risks. And it's so true. Fear and chaos, a lot of times we associate those things with negative stuff that makes us avoid things and accomplishing anything. But the world is full of scary things. It's how you handle the chaos that's what defines you. Thanks.